Hello, my name is Tomy Shaw, and I'm here to talk to you about real estate. What matters in real estate? Determining the value of a property is very important when you want to buy real estate, okay? It's one of the factors that will determine if you're successful or not in real estate. So let's look how we can calculate the value of a property. There's many ways you can calculate the value of a property. You can calculate it either by comparing it to the comparables of the market. You can look at it by square feet. You can multiply its yearly incomes, or you can multiply the profits of the property to give you a certain value that the property should be worth. So how do we calculate this number? How do we get to this profit? And when I'm talking about profits, I'm talking about profits before interest, amortization, and depreciation, and also your interest. Okay, so it's very important to understand this number. The first thing you gotta do is you gotta calculate all the income that's coming in your property through all your tenants. It could be through your tenants, it could be through a laundry machine. And then once we determine this value, this number, we have to subtract the vacancies of your local city. Every city has a different vacancy number. You're going to take the one that is in your city. Like for example, in my city, Chicoutimi, it is around 5%, okay? It depends on which sector you go into. When there's more bedrooms, the vacancies tends to be higher. And when you go into lower numbers of rooms in your apartment, the vacancy seems to go lower, okay? So this is very important to understand. Once we know this number, in Chicoutimi it's 5%. So we're gonna take your yearly income minus vacancies, and then this is gonna give you your income, because you have to remember some years you're gonna rent 100% of your apartments, and some years you rent out some, it's gonna be like 10%. But when you average out the vacancies, it's gonna come back to about around 5%. So now another important step. The step number 2 is calculating all the expenses that is related to your property. It's very important to understand this, because if you know how much you're spending, you know how much profits you're making. And what I see, and when people are coming up to me showing me the numbers and stuff like that, what I see is that they don't put enough maintenance. They don't even put expenses for a manager. You can't do that. That's gonna manipulate the numbers, and you're not gonna get the real value that you should pay for it. You're essentially gonna overpay for the property because you're not including all the expenses. And the expenses, I put in some spreadsheets on my page, but here are some examples. There are many, and don't forget to include them all. There's maintenance and repairs, there's school, municipal, taxes, and even if you don't have a manager, you still have to include this section, okay? You have insurance, utilities, you have all the expenses that are related to your bookkeeping. If you have any account, your notaries, your lawyers, all of these expenses has to be included. Once you have all the expenses, you're gonna get to a total amount of expenses. Now that we have this number, you take your rent income minus vacancies minus expenses, and this gives you your profits before depreciation, before interest and taxes. This is the magic number that you need, okay? Because once you have this number, we are able to see how much returns the property is making. Like let's say you're paying, the seller is asking $200,000 for a fourplex. It's profiting $10,000. Okay, when I'm talking about profits, I'm always talking about before interest, taxes, and depreciation. Okay, so 10,000 divided by 200,000 is a 5% return. Okay, this number is very important to understand, because say the banks are lending you money at 2.5%. Well, you're making 5%. you know there's a spread, okay? And this spread gives you the ability to use leverage, okay? Leverage will increase that return by many folds. Like it can start out with a 5% return, but if you're using 10 times the amount, like let's say you're putting a 10% down payment on a $200,000 property, you're putting down $20,000, but you're leveraging $180,000 of other people's money to increase your returns, okay? It's very important to understand that number. And it also gives you how much margin of safety that you have between you and interest rates. Say the interest rates were to increase, you have a 2.5% safety that the market can go against you before you get to zero, okay? So it's very important to understand. Now, let's say you want to determine how much you want to make per year. Let's look at this the other way around. Say you are an investor that is seeking a 10% return. Okay, a 10% return in my local area is a lot, okay? I'm looking at around 6.5% in Chicoutimi, okay? This varies from all over Canada. Like when you're going to New Brunswick, some people have told me they're making between 10 to 14% return. I wish this was the case for Chicoutimi. My God, I would grow a lot faster, but at the same time, I bet the interest rates in New Brunswick are a lot higher than in Chicoutimi because it's very easy to get debt here in Quebec. So once we have this number, okay, remember when we were looking at the example, the profits were $10,000. You're an investor that is seeking a 10% return, okay? It's very easy to understand. You take that $10,000 divided by 10% is equal to $100,000. I know between the seller and the buyer, I just put in some numbers to make it easy to understand, okay? Would you pay $200,000 for the property? No, because for the sake of this example, I know there's no property selling for $100,000, especially a fourplex, but it's only to help you guys understand the example, okay? So in reality, what you would want to do is go a lot closer to the $100,000 value because you're looking at a 10% return, okay? And that 10% return minus the interest will give you your returns on the money that you invested. The higher the spread and the more leverage that you use, the higher returns on investment. The return on equity or invested money will increase drastically. And also, why it's important to understand is that the profits before your interest, taxes, and depreciation will also determine your ability to pay the debt. This is called the debt ratio coverage. Okay, banks look at this. You need to be at least 115. Okay, is 115 good? Not really, but it's the minimum that you need to be at. This means that for every $1.15 that comes in of profits, you have $1 of debt to pay. Okay, I look at this number that it should be at least 1.25 and higher. Okay, so for this example, I'll leave it to this. If you like what I'm saying, what I'm sharing, don't forget to like, don't forget to share, don't forget to subscribe, and hit the like button. Thank you. Have a nice day.